Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'm working with Catherine Oji from the Rock Haven Network. Today I'm going to talk to you about the approach I'm going to use. I'm going to use the hypothesis-driven approach because although the traditional operational approach is linear and may seem faster given the rushed nature of this class, the hypothesis-driven approach seeks to identify a strategic question and allows us to develop a few hypotheses that we can test. Since we're unfamiliar with the refugee population in Dallas-Fort Worth, it really makes the most sense, I believe, moving forward to use this approach. We're going to generate a few hypotheses, and then we're going to test the hypotheses and present the findings. So what I have in front of you is a chart that I made that references the hypothesis-driven approach and what I think needs to be accomplished. So number one, we're going to define the strategic question. Catherine helped us a bit with that when she came in and communicated to Nicole what she really wanted. We took that after speaking with Catherine and tweaked it a little bit to see what made sense. Our strategic question is, how can we help Catherine Oji and the Rock Haven Network build the capacity that she desires and find a strategic way forward? So now our next step is to generate a few of the hypotheses. So we did a little background research online. We spoke with Catherine. And we came with a few different hypotheses. Number one, we don't know what services are out there and available. That's the first hypothesis. There's either a bureaucracy issue or just a plain lack of knowledge. And these services, maybe they're just not reaching the immigrants. So that's one. Number two, the services do not equal the needs. This would be the case if there's too large of a refugee population for the services that exist. That might be the case. Taking this one step further, we could say that maybe there are specific refugee groups or people that are falling through the cracks. Maybe these groups are a certain community. Maybe they're a certain ethnicity. Maybe they're a certain sex, age, education level, or another option. Maybe the population itself has help early on within those first 90 days we learned through the resettlement organizations, and then just has an issue from that point on. The third point, maybe no matter how plentiful the services really are, there's needs that exist outside those services that are available. Maybe they're more outside the box. The reason I've circled number three, I'll get to that later. When I first came up with these three different hypotheses, I didn't narrow down. I went to test the hypotheses. I did that by doing a few different things. I interviewed Catherine. Our group as a whole asked her all about how she got into the Rock Haven Network, how she started it, where she came from, why this cause matters to her. We also interviewed resettlement organizations. I also read some secondary sources. Number four, I have that italicized, speaking with refugees and focus groups. I have not done that yet, but I think that would also be a great way to test the hypotheses. So one recommendation I have based on some secondary research that I've done and the databases we have is really based on what I've seen in GuideStar. Although Mintel and Hoover are both great sources, I think that for this nonprofit that's very small, I think GuideStar really gave us the biggest insight. Looking at their site, it looks like the organization only has a budget of $5,000 a year, which tells me that there's a really big opportunity here to raise some more funds. Two programs that were described in GuideStar were the Summer of Hope and the Beacon of Hope Counseling Restoration Sources. These two organizations that are described on, or these two programs that are described on GuideStar really show what Catherine's about, her values of community building. From there, I decided to do a little bit more digging. I went onto WorldCat UMD to look at secondary sources that would help me get a better sense of what's really going on in Fort Worth, and particularly in Park Meadow, which is the community that Catherine serves. One particular article that really jumped out at me was an article written for the Oxford University Press and Community Development Journal in March of 2014. It's a recent article, and it seemed very pertinent. It's called Mind the Gap, the Growing Chasm Between Funding-Driven Agencies and Social and Community Knowledge and Practice. Basically, these two women, Caroline Lunette and Anne Ingamalis, deduced that the current tendency in the refugee population and the resettlement communities, as well as the current trend for basically just settlers that come to any new country or new community, is a tendency towards case management and away from community development. Case management in this sense being a very pragmatic, step-by-step, just addressing the basic needs, food, education. This article really deduces that community building and capacity building within those communities is actually what's needed. People need to feel a sense of connection with their community, connection with the people in their community. And although addressing basic needs is very important, refugees can feel isolated and detached, and that can take away from any ability to assimilate. For their research, these two women who wrote this article, two doctors, worked with focus groups of women that were new to Australia and had arrived at different times. All of them shared their experiences. And so the article concluded, like I said, that community development is the key to assimilation and can link new settlers to members of their host community. Interestingly enough, from interviews we had with some employees at resettlement organizations, we drew similar conclusions. Corley, an intern coordinator with IRC Dallas, a resettlement organization, said, "Public and private partnerships are the hot new thing. They really are the key to success. These are families, local businesses, or larger businesses that are matched with refugees, refugee families, or refugee communities. Personalized and specialized help and care is what they need to become independent and self-sufficient." I look back at GuideStar, which I'll pull up now. Oops. And I read what Catherine had written about her, the areas served. When reading this, she says, "We are dedicated to becoming one-stop shop, providing holistic solutions to the refugees and the communities as we strive to answer their physical, emotional, spiritual, and social needs." This to me means that Catherine also values community building. And so I do think that really there's an issue here with there's needs that exist outside of the services that are available. Through this, I realized that community building is key. We can only build community through securing funding streams for Catherine and for Rockhaven Network. And finally, Catherine must sell herself and her story. Although Catherine is a really passionate and powerful person, if you read what she wrote in Areas Served, you can definitely see that I think she would really benefit from us being able to help her develop some marketing material so that she could pitch herself and investors. Thank you.